I'm not crying. I'm not crying. I could really do without rusty joints right now.
Doesn't it seem like JRPGs come into vogue completely at random? Persona 5 blew people away with an incredibly stylized game full of interesting mechanics. Then Dragon Quest XI made people remember what the average JRPG is like, so nobody cares anymore. Meanwhile, there are always high-quality JRPGs coming out and nobody even knows. I'm a huge fan of the Atelier games, but admitting that you like the Atelier games is just a complicated way of coming out as gay. I seriously love JRPGs. I grew up playing pretty much exclusively JRPGs, but they've changed quite a bit since like 2000 when I started playing them. Games like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy were mainstays that were part of the bunch of dudes in a row beating up bunnies and then Satan genre of games. Some RPGs built onto those tropes with even more unique styles of play. Games like Shadow Heart's Covenant or Lost Odyssey. My favorite of those lesser known RPGs is The Last Remnant. They were very well beloved among their niche fan bases, but they have never soared to the heights of the big games. Going back to some of those games now, well, they're repetitive and boring. I stopped playing JRPGs for a long time after 2010, so I wanted to kick off my return to them with something new and different. How about one that's not even finished yet? Edge of Eternity is somewhat of a success. The Kickstarter was funded and then the game was nearly completely changed. The world map became one giant continent instead of 3. The promise of branching storylines has yet to be fulfilled if it will happen at all. Summons aren't in the game and Nekaroo breeding isn't a thing at all. In fact, Nekaroos are just boring chocobos at this point. All characters were entirely redesigned, which honestly wasn't a bad idea. Chapters are added every few months, so progression comes to a dead stop at a point. I'm getting into negatives too quickly though, I haven't even explained the game. Before I get too far into it, I just want to say if you like the video then give it a like and subscribe. If you want me to check out another game, just drop a comment. I'm gonna run out of stuff to talk about eventually. EOE is a tactical role-playing game. Tactical because the battles are done on a grid. Sort of like Fire Emblem, but you can only move one grid instead of, I don't know, 150. I haven't played the last couple Fire Emblem games. The grid will confuse you at first. When you move in a battle, you can choose a direction to face, but it is a little wonky and depending on the camera placement, you could be very unsure of which way you're facing. The grid keeps battles interesting since enemies will spawn on them randomly and even your allies. Of course, it would be best if everyone spawned on grids adjacent to each other, but it depends on many factors, I assume. Honestly, it's sort of an enigma to me how these things get decided. Keep your long-distance attackers in the back behind your beefy physical attackers is the safest bet, but some creatures are quicker than others. Those quicker ones will tear through your ranks and get to the squishier folks. It's like the front and back row mechanics from the older Final Fantasy games. Managing your ability to aggro enemies but also killing them fast enough is its own mechanic, one that you have to learn from playing. I've beaten all the chapters there are right now, but I'm still not comfortable with my strategy when I start a battle. Actions are exactly what they should be. No big gimmicks really. Anything done with a physical attack is instant and magic needs a bit of a wind-up. Attacks can have elements tied to it like a 2-hit ice attack for your main attacker Darien. The only tanky character you get early on is Ysaurus, but the only use I found for him was just the extreme bulk and ability to taunt others into attacking him. His actual damage output is pathetic, but he's still a useful character. I wish there was an easy resource to find out how characters work. Maybe a website that shows growth with level ups. That would be nice, but the Wikia for EOE is absolutely worthless. Maybe I'll spend the next couple weeks actually contributing to it. Speaking of spending weeks, side quests are on average boring and the gathering ones could take too long if you aren't grabbing every resource node like I am. I think I had 99 iron ore by the time I got a quest to deliver 10 of them. The ones that actually have a semblance of a story are actually pretty good. Not every side quest needs to be a Witcher 3 side quest, and there are plenty of those in that game that suck as well. These are simple little stories. Go kill a unicorn thing that murdered my son. Oh, it turns out the animal actually kills people who are going to do evil in the future. Guess I better go tell him his son was going to be a dickhead. It keeps your attention long enough and builds some good fantasy lore. And lore is one problem I have with this game. I'll get to that. Other side quests have you killing certain area bosses that go down pretty quick with proper placement. You'll be tackling these without a full party, so if you wait till you get some more members, they're a cakewalk. Walking around certain areas is a delight in itself. The open world has some gorgeous views. Herelzar looks great from any visible angle. The huge open area right in the middle lets you have a gorgeous view of the lighthouse. Head northeast past all the naked zombies and experience a great beach with a dense jungle up on the cliff above. How about some hands raising from the ground and a literal hell landscape? Well, let's leave that and go towards the Elysian Fields, home to some alien shit. The scorched Halcyon is right up on a volcano too, home to an actual armed forces base. Each area has its own great landmarks. I never get tired of looking around some of these places. Main characters have some pretty good designs. Darian's change from the Kickstarter and even his most recent model cleanup make him pretty appealing to look at. Celine is a refreshing design. She dresses like a white mage in her full body robes and acts like a red mage because she can deal offensive magic and heal. So far she's the only dedicated magic user and she's as squishy as any mage should be. Yosaurus looks like a bruiser character, but the more he travels with you, it turns out he's a misunderstood teddy bear. It fits his vagabond, gruff look to have that personality. Myrna is a rogue mystic. That's all I have to say, they don't really do much with her. And Fallon is just sort of here. She's an airship pilot, but we haven't seen her airship or crew. I hope she's either gonna leave the party or actually do something worthwhile later. She's a less likable Cid from Final Fantasy VII, which is hard to accomplish because Cid actually just beats his wife in that game. The final character is an orb. She's cool, talks like GLaDOS, which is some sort of running theme in games now.
Typical human reaction. Now you see me walking on two legs, you suddenly wonder what to call me.
Every character is charming in their own way. I love interactions between everyone while they're discussing a plan. Even if everyone agrees on what to do, they'll still bicker and hold arguments. Personality is definitely what this game holds in supply. Celine is a great showcase of characters actually progressing while the story is, becoming confident in her choices and beliefs since she's the one that's fighting for them throughout all the chapters. Now I'm gonna talk about the story a little bit, but I won't be spoiling extreme story beats, just some light spoilers ahead. In the world of Harion, hyper-advanced aliens called the Archelites were our friends. They taught us some technology and stuff. The original cutscene at the beginning of the game said that the Archelites wanted to take crystals from us, so we fought back against that, starting a war. The new cutscene just says that the Archelites just decided one day they didn't like us anymore. The beginning shows a sweet battle between the United Nations of Harion called the Consort and the Archelites. There's ace combat shit happening in the sky, and mech warriors shit on the ground, and armored core shit right in your face. I love the visuals of Archelite technology. It reminds me of Strike Suit Zero. During that battle, there's a secret ritual that sacrifices human souls to destroy a big attack ship. Now, this battle seems pretty important, right? Like the giant attack that took out an entire base and important defensive encampments. You know, the one where a giant arm comes up and explodes a giant ship. That one. Yeah, that's not brought up again. Seriously. Maybe I skipped some dialogue somewhere, but the Archelites are brought up so little in the story. The next time I saw them was in chapter 5 or 6, I think. A few of their aircraft fly through the sky, with almost zero comments from the party. Unfortunately, the story you actually follow tends to be more grounded in the fantasy setting. Darian and his sister Celine need to help their mom overcome a plague called the corrosion. It's ravaging across the land, so Celine leaves from the religious group that she is a priestess of to find a cure. You fight golems, rock monsters, giant beasts, soldiers, and all that jazz. I got so comfortable with the fantasy stuff that when someone pulled out a walkie-talkie, it triggered my fight or flight. The tech and fantasy stuff blend much better when you end up in Tier Kalum. It's a crashed Arcalite ship that was modified by people who left from the religious big cities. I guess that the story from here on out is just that the corroded, who were people that succumb to the corrosion, are the main bad guys now. But also maybe it's this weird silhouette guy who controls robots, or... Wait, but the religious group hates Celine, so shouldn't they be... And also, wasn't there a giant robot shooting at me like 10 hours ago? The story feels good when you're just going with the flow. Accept anything or question everything. It can get a little bit frustrating when the story leaves you behind. Now I'm just going to nitpick a bit. I know it's my fault for playing an early access game, but I know that Midgar Studio can do better. Hover was very well polished when I played it, so maybe it just needs some time to cook. This game is woefully incomplete. There was an update on the 16th and the 22nd of February, and it did fix a few things, but never a problem that I personally had. The update on the 16th was also an intermediary chapter. It took place between the prologue and chapter 1. Whoa, cool, a whole 30 minutes of gameplay. Wow. I do find it appreciated though, don't get me wrong. Just because I never had a soft lock while talking to someone on a Nekaru doesn't mean that it isn't a problem for someone else. For me, it's more of the constant other gameplay issues that haven't been fixed yet. Do you want to leave an important cutscene? Well, you're going to bounce up and down for a solid minute. You're just getting back to the overworld? Well, you're going to bounce up and down and also crash. You want to use Celine's sweet ultimate? The camera's gonna hover in a weird area and slide down all slow as hell. But none of these really sound game breaking. I mean, if there was, then I would just kill myself. Yeah, Darien gets stuck under the world after using his ultimate for the first time. And I have been able to replicate these results even after the updates. Graphical issues aren't really an issue for me, but I found a few things. Besides the fact that the characters look like early 360 models, the camera can get stuck in awkward positions if you don't move it to a specific location before talking to someone. The camera can also zoom in too far into your character and show a weird vortex. Cutscenes also leave you facing weird-ass directions when they're over. I just don't know. It's weird. Those are small, but the gameplay stuff really needs some work. Another big thing is the frame rates. I'm chalking this one up to early access unoptimization. Particles like snow or random orbs are everywhere. Running through certain places really gets my CPU chugging. Subnautica handled like ass for a long time, but now it's crisp. I wish it wasn't a problem, but just set the graphics on medium, or high if your rig is beefier than mine. It's a good chance it is. Can I recommend this game? Not really, but wait for spring. The current roadmap places the actual release date around then, after the final 2 chapters. I'm actually excited for them to come out so I can finish the story that I'm weirdly invested in despite any payoff so far. Maybe they're saving all the updates for the real final release. I hope it works out for them. In the meantime, just play The Last Remnant. The PC port is pretty alright. And no more early access games now. I'm just so tired.